Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive straight into this. Have you ever sat through a grueling lecture, frantically scribbling down literally every single word, only to realize days later that you remember, well, absolutely none of it? Yeah, we've all been there. It's kind of the classic note-taking trap, right? This passive transcription. Today we're unpacking the cognitive science behind what high achievers actually do. We're going to compare the exact systems they use to learn faster and retain way more.
So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the note-taking trap, then look at structured frameworks and visual systems. After that, we're tackling the zero-note strategy, the mistake notebook, and finally, how to choose your perfect method. Lots to cover. All right, part 1, the note-taking trap. Passive transcription versus active learning.
Let's talk about why millions of students falsely believe that writing everything down equals learning. To understand why copying word for word completely fails, aside from giving you massive hand cramps, we have to talk about cognitive load theory. See, our working memory, it has strict limits. When you try to act like a human transcription machine during a fast-paced lecture, the sheer mental cost of just writing totally overwhelms your brain's ability to actually process the meaning. You're just a printer, and that literally blocks real understanding from happening. Let's move to section 2 and see how this builds. Structured frameworks, moving beyond basic transcription. Since passive transcription just fries our brains, we need formats that force us to organize actively while we listen. Here are 2 highly effective linear methods to compare. First up is the sentence method. This is perfect for those lightning-fast lectures. You just write paraphrased bullet points on separate lines so you can keep moving without falling behind. Then we have the parallel method. Think of it like this: teacher's presentation on one side, but a dedicated column on the other just for your own explanations and questions. It's brilliant because it balances your divided attention by giving you a designated space for your own thoughts. Let's actually see the sentence method in action with a history topic. Instead of staring at a massive, dense paragraph about the Harappan script, you just extract the core facts. And this brilliantly illustrates how breaking a dense text into concise, paraphrased bullet points makes rapid revision incredibly easy. Seriously, you don't have to reread the entire textbook because the absolute essence of it is right there. Now, you might be wondering about the heavyweights. Let's look at Walter Pock's famous Cornell method layout. You put your main notes in that large right column, but check out the left column. That's reserved strictly for cues and questions. So instead of just jotting down a heading like the French Revolution, you actually write it as a question. Why did the French Revolution happen? By tweaking it like that, you're building a self-testing tool directly into your notes. Oh, and that bottom row? That's strictly for a high-level 2 to 3 sentence summary of the whole page. But here's the catch with the Cornell layout. It really only works if you follow its specific 3-pass cycle. First up, acquisition. That's taking those paraphrased notes in the right column during the actual lecture. Step 2 is cueing. Within 24 hours, while the memory is still fresh in your mind, you write those self-testing questions in the left column. And finally, summarization. Within 48 hours, you synthesize that entire page into just a couple of sentences at the bottom. Top performers use this exact step-by-step process to lock in memories right after class, rather than panicking and cramming weeks later. Moving on to section 3, visual systems, spatial memory, and analytical mapping.
Sometimes plain linear text just doesn't cut it, right? Especially when you're managing heavy, complex data. That's when we pivot to spatial organization. Enter the charting method. This is an absolute lifesaver for subjects that demand heavy compare and contrast analysis, kind of like history. The trick is to preset your column headings before the lecture even starts. That drastically reduces your cognitive load. You aren't wasting brainpower trying to figure out how to structure the information on the fly. You're literally just dropping data into a pre-existing matrix.
Let's compare 2 other visual styles. First is concept mapping. This one is highly structured. You kick things off with a core theme right in the center and branch outward. It powerfully engages your spatial memory to show exactly how concepts link together. Next up, we have flow notes. This is way more freeform and individualistic. You're using keywords, quick drawings, and arrows in real time. Flow notes are hugely popular in STEM fields because you have to map out complex systems quickly without getting bogged down by writing paragraphs. So, the crucial point is this: does any of this structured effort actually pay off? Well, research shows that implementing structured systems like the Cornell method, methods that force active learning over passive transcription, is associated with a 10 to 12% grade increase compared to unstructured note-taking. I mean, that is a massive return on investment for your time.
All right, let's get into Section 4, the zero-note strategy, high-achiever anti-note frameworks.
Get ready for a pretty radical shift here. Some of the most successful medical students and highly competitive exam candidates out there barely write traditional notes at all. Take a look at medical student Zach Hiley's famed zero notes workflow. Notice the sequence here. He previews vocabulary a day early. Then, during the actual lecture, he just views and listens. He writes absolutely nothing down. Instead of messing around with highlighters and summaries, he makes digital flashcards in Anki, tests himself immediately with practice questions, and relies entirely on unspaced repetition. As our sources point out regarding high-stakes tests like the UPSC in India, notes are not for storing information, they are for retrieving it. If your notes are bulky, they are useless. I absolutely love that. Treating your notes like they're just a second textbook is a fatal mistake. Your notes need to be lean, mean retrieval machines. To keep those notes incredibly lean, top candidates swear by the 10% rule. It breaks down into 3 simple steps. First, read the material to actually understand it, without even touching a pen. Because, let's be honest, if you write on the first read, everything feels important, and you'll end up copying the whole book. Second pass, you highlight the key words. Third pass, you write down only what you are likely to forget. Never ever note down facts you already know perfectly well, like India got independence in 1947. Just skip it. Which brings us to Section 5, the Mistake Notebook. The ODAP Note Diagnostic System. We've talked a lot about capturing information, but what about correcting errors? It's fascinating how high achievers treat their mistakes as highly specific data. Enter the ultimate tool for deliberate practice, originally known in South Korea as the ODAP Note. Essentially, they log every single incorrect practice question into a mistake notebook. A red conceptual gap means you go back and relearn the theory. A blue or yellow retrieval decay means that fact goes straight into a flashcard. And a green careless slip means adjusting your physical testing habits, like using a point-and-confirm method. You are literally hunting your weaknesses. Another intense diagnostic tool is the blurting method. You study a topic briefly, close all your materials, and write down literally everything you can remember on a blank page. Then, you open the book back up and add everything you missed using a red pen. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it creates an immediate, highly visual inventory of your knowledge gaps. All that red ink staring back at you, that shows you exactly where your blind spots are. And when it comes to organizing all this data, especially digitally, look at the difference between these 2 folder structures. Novices tend to use chronological folders, organizing things by the date of a lecture. Honestly, that's a nightmare to search through later. High achievers almost always use issue-based folders. Think economy, then banking, then inflation. Whenever a new article drops or a lecture happens, they append the new data directly to that specific concept file. It keeps their whole digital knowledge network perfectly categorized and instantly searchable. Finally, Section 6, choosing your perfect method, matching the tool to the task. We've covered a ton of ground today, so how do you actually apply the right framework to the right subject? Well, this summary matrix is your ultimate cheat sheet. Studying history or the humanities, use charting to compare and contrast. Trapped in a super dense, fast-paced lecture, rely on the sentence or parallel methods. Trying to map out STEM systems or do some creative planning, go for concept mapping or flow notes. And for that brutal, high-volume memorization for medicine or board exams, abandon traditional notes entirely for the zero-note strategy and build a mistake notebook. I really want to leave you with this powerful thought from the sources. Most students practice by doing what they're already good at. Deliberate practice is about intentionally focusing on what you're bad at. You know, effective note-taking isn't supposed to feel completely effortless. It's meant to be slightly uncomfortable because it forces your brain to actually work, to process the material, and to confront your weaknesses head-on. Which brings us to our final question for you. If you lost all of your notebooks tomorrow, would you still retain the knowledge in your head? If your answer is no, then it might be time to stop passively transcribing and start actively learning. Pick just one of the methods we compared today, apply it to your next study session, and watch your retention skyrocket. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy learning.